Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for spending this time with us. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to talk about something that's happening in the Democratic Party and progressives right now. And what I'm going to try to tell folks is forget about worrying about these issues with the Democratic Party and let's get the job done as progressives. Are you a progressive activist? Are you a progressive enlightener? Are you doing things of progressive values for getting the body politic engaged? Then we need to go ahead and make sure that we forget about all these differences that are occurring. We need to forget about the Hillary-Bernie fight. All those things are should be under the bridge and should simply not matter. And for those who want to change the structure of the Democratic Party, we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But anyhow, the title of the program today is Progressives Will Win. Progressives will win when we give up on hoping party will change and just change it. In other words, every time something happens in the progressive in the Democratic Party that a whole lot of progressives don't like, they jump up and they scream about how bad the Democratic Party is and what the Democratic Party is doing to the progressive movement, etc., etc. Get over it. Progressives have the power to change the system. After all, it is with us where America lies. It is with us. It is the values that we have. If you watch the blog that I put out earlier in the week, where I showed a lot of issues that Elizabeth Warren pointed out in the 2015 Netroots conference, she laid it out perfectly, and I'll urge you guys to go find that blog on my site. The title of that blog is actually, I really want you guys to check out that blog, because what it does, actually I think I wrote it last night and I placed it on Daily Kos as well and on Op-Ed News, but I really want you to take a look at that blog. It is titled, so write it down, it is titled, come on computer, bring up that blog page, it's going to come up in a little bit, and welcome Michelle Lemley. I used to think it was best to change it from within. I know now I was wrong. They don't want change, forward progress. They want to preserve more of the status quo at all costs. We're going to talk about that, Michelle. I hope you stick around when we start to talk about that. But the blog that I wanted to tell you is titled, it's the second blog on my page right now. It's titled, If Progressives Perform, the Country Will Respond. Its values are with us, meaning its values are not with the right. Its values are not with the establishment. Its values are not with the center. Its values are with us. And we have to start realizing that. And we don't have to make excuses. We don't have to go out there and say, well, we just hope things would go our way, or we make them go our way. And if you take a look at what the Indivisible movement has done as far as healthcare is concerned and how we got it stopped, not by just engaging Democrats, but engaging the totality of the body politic, those are the things that we as progressives must do. Those are the things that we as progressives can do. We don't have to wait for instructions. We don't have to wait for party directive. We don't have to wait for any of that. We form our own local organizations and we effect the change that we want. There are some changes we can make from within, by the way, Michelle, that I'm going to talk about, that, again, we don't really care too much. And by the way, welcome Connie Sierras and Milton Gibson. Welcome aboard. And anybody else that I forget, forgive me. But we don't have to make that, or we don't have to be fearful as far as when to make that change. But before I actually get into the show, I want to take a little detour here, because I saw a story, I think I first saw it on Raw Story, and in the blog piece I forgot to give Raw Story a hat tip on that one. I'll probably have to edit the blog and give them a hat tip. I went directly to the WGN news, the WGN station where the story was put out. There was, I know you guys know about the white supremacist action that there was in Florida. Well, there was this, there are a whole lot of activists together and they're kind of talking close to each other and all of that. No fights at that time. But this black guy then goes up to one of the white supremacists and gave him a hug. And, you take a look at that, and yes, he entered the white supremacist space, so that could have been a bit problematic. But the black guy went ahead and gave the white supremacist a hug. And the funny thing about it is the white supremacist did not know what to do. It wasn't a violent confrontation. It was anything of that sort. So I want to take care of, and I want to stay on this issue just a little bit, and then we're going to get into the Democratic Party issue, but I want to touch on this because this is important. I wrote a blog before that issue called, and it's going to be featured on Daily Kos tomorrow sometime in the evening. I titled the blog, Why I Give Racists Second, Third, and More Chances, and it is about sexism. And hear me out here. Here's the blog. Like most men, I grew up sexist and homophobic. It did not help that it was the culture of the Latin American country from where I'm from. My path away from homophobia deserves a whole article on its own. Most importantly though, my path to becoming a feminist and a gay rights activist makes me much more empathetic. Makes me a much more empathetic person towards racists and others I am diametrically and morally opposed to for what they represent. This may sound strange, but hear me out. It may also piss a lot of people off. But if we want to heal, this is what I think it's all about. I became a feminist soon after I entered University of Texas, Austin. But it was an intellectual realization that women as a class, like many other groups, blacks, Asians, gays, etc., were discriminated against. I understood that the systemic nature of said discrimination resulted in the male-female economic and power disparity. Recently, I read an FB friend's named Jim Rigby's post that really spoke to me, and this is what he said. He said, "Listen, guys, I understand your resistance to what women are saying this week about the prevalence of male abuse of women, but there is a gift in this for you if you can find the courage to set aside your defenses and hear what is being said. I remember my own painful awakening to my role in the patriarchy, sitting in a training session or training classes at the Rape Crisis Center decades ago. I remember the temptation to co-opt the conversation, making it about my discomfort with the conversation instead of what was happening to women. I remember resisting the statistics. I remember after training, speaking to colleges and high schools where the males consistently tried to shut down the conversation by presenting the experience of women as though they were nothing more than personal criticisms of men. I certainly remember a fraternity at UT shutting down my talk on rape prevention by shouting, F you, F you. Mentality, folks. To recognize how I had been taught to see women as objects and how I had been conditioned by the culture to fix women and try to stay in control without even realizing it was not easy. I personally could not think my way out of patriarchy. I kept finding flaws in what was being said. I did not realize I was using my own sexist interpretations of my life to measure the justice claims of women. Eventually, I had to grieve my way out of patriarchy. I had to die to my false hypermasculinity. I had to learn to stop trying to control and fix others. I had to die to my false bravado and be born into the ambiguities of my deeper humanity. Like alcoholism, undoing male privilege is a lifetime struggle, but a reward of being fully human is worth every single tear. Jim Rigby hits the nail on the head. The person in the privileged position tends to take a defensive posture even if they consider themselves enlightened and understand that the aggrieved class is really aggrieved. It was not until I joined Move to Amend, when I joined Move to Amend, where we centralized on race and gender, that I really understood the concept of just listening through the eyes of the offended class. The organization that had some strong women, or rather, that organization, meaning Move to Amend, that I was a part of, had strong women. And it was not long before they penetrated my fall feminism. You know, I thought I was this great feminist. They broke me down. It was not for me to negotiate an understanding of what women go through via the lens of my still embedded sexism. It was these women and some men taking control and breaking me down, whether I could accept it or not. The reality, however, is that I still had the opportunity to walk away, to flee the discomfort. See, that's the thing. You can always, in these situations, just walk away. Go where you're not being judged. After all, most of the world is sexist. After all, a lot of the world is racist. So you can get away from the discomfort. Or I could stay and cathartically heal. I chose the latter. But I was ready intellectually to do that. Again, I was ready intellectually to do that. Many are not yet. The behavior is true when going through the interhuman dynamics of any aggrieved class, or this behavior is true. I once wrote that sexism has a much higher hurdle in our society than racism in my article titled Hillary Clinton proved that sexism is worse than racism in America. But you know what? After I wrote that article, I got a lot of pushback from white liberals, but especially black women. And the part about the black women shocked me the most, because I think black and woman has a huge hurdle. And I think it is specifically because it is black and female. But I'm still listening. I'm still hearing the arguments. I'm not yet convinced. Am I wrong? I don't know. My Daily Coast compatriots tell me that I am, but I am not yet convinced. They haven't given me the information that I think would tell me that yes, that is true. It is hard to move a juggernaut, folks. I now view most racists through the eyes of my past sexism and the continual journey to fully extricate it. The mind has two components, the intellectual part and the muscle memory part. Think about that. You know, you intellectually accept something, but still, if you see it when you're off guard, you kind of cringe and you kind of like, oh God, you know, it's like the person who first saw interracial marriages and hated it because that should never happen. And then later they accepted it because they knew, what's the difference? It's just pigmentation. But still, when they see it, to them it's kind of strange. But later on, as more and more you get embedded into that particular truity, it starts to be natural. The muscle memory portion of your psyche takes control. It takes control as well. So the mind has two components, the intellectual part and the muscle memory part. When working with racists, the intellectual part is easy. Even if they try not to get the intellectual argument, they ultimately do. You planted that seed. Don't think that when you're talking to a racist and telling him things that it's not seed in him. It is seed in him. It is preparing him or her. It is putting some seeds in there, because it is putting some seeds that when the right fertilizer is dropped into his mind or her mind, that seed would start to grow. But you got to put the seed in. When people say, oh, forget about them, forget about it, you can't change them. I forget about nobody. Nobody. But continuing. Even if they try not to get the intellectual argument, they ultimately do. However, the muscle memory portion of our minds requires practice and stimulation. That is where integration in all aspects of living can provide that positive stimulus. But one has to give the racist the opportunity for redemption after a screw up, after a relapse. And that is something that progressives have a hard time doing. A lot of times a racist screws up and it's the end of the story and they don't want to have anything else to do with it. You're a racist, you're no good, you're terrible. Well, somebody could have told me that about my sexism. Somebody could have told me that about my homophobia. I can tell you for a fact it's completely extricated. It's completely extricated, but you always make sure to keep it that way by making sure you continue to train yourself from the diseased past of your upbringing. Anyhow, that is where integration and in all aspects of living can provide that positive stimulus. But one has to give the racist the opportunity for redemption after a screw up, after a relapse. Look, I am not naive. There are racists who are willful racists. Again, there's a difference. There are racists who are willful racists. It fulfills them financially or it empowers them in a manner they find appealing. Power, the power to degrade, that sort of thing. That's sort of an illness deeper than just a basic racist illness. My contention is that they do not represent the majority. Most are swayed by ignorance, upbringing, and peer pressure. A racist, a sexist, a homophobe can always take the easy way out. Just like I could have run away from my own enlightenment, which would have been much easier. I didn't have to tolerate these women really letting me have it. Well, you thought you were a feminist, but look at what you think. Check this out. That is terrible, Egberto. It had to be extricated. It was easier to walk away. But we learn not to walk away. They can too. The racists can walk away too. And if we just keep the status quo and let the racists walk away, nothing changes. Nothing changes. That's why I like that other blog that I wrote, where that guy sat down, or rather that guy in that protest went up to that white supremacist. The black guy went to the white supremacist and hugged him. The symbolic nature of that is saying, I know you're a racist, but I'm going to engage you. What do you do when you're engaged? Do you really know what a racist really is? If we really want to change, if we really want to have a truly functional, multicultural, multiracial, multigendered, multi-everything society based on true societal equality, we must give second, third, fourth, many chances. Remember that we're all humans. Even that racist has a heart. Even that sexist, me previously, has a heart. The homophobe has a heart. We all have our prejudices. And it is how we deal with our prejudices. It is how we move forward with our prejudices. It's how we try to heal the prejudices. And it is how we engage others to find solutions to problem. It is always easier to down that person. It is always easier to say, you are just an old, you're just an old racist. I don't want to deal with you anymore. That will always be easier, folks. But if you want change, and if you believe in humanity, and if you believe we're all really, really, really equal, if you believe that, and I don't have to believe this, I know this. If we know that pigmentation has very little to do with what makes humanity, then I think we have to spread that reality to all. And I think those of us that listen to shows like mine, Politics Done Right and others, I'm not talking about the ones who just want to create confrontation. There's always room for confrontation. I love a very good confrontation when it is effective. But there are times that you just have to do the grassroots work, whether it's on solving the social justice issue, the racial justice issue, the Democratic Party issue, which is what this show is supposed to be about. But that touched me this morning, and I really wanted to get into it. Since I've been hyperventilating now for 20 minutes, I think it is time for me to take a call. Don't forget that telephone number. give us a call at, and it's scrolled off, but it's in there somewhere. Give us a call at, let me tell you what that number is. Give us a call at 646-929-2495. Again, that number is 646-929-2495. Subject at hand, progressives and the Democratic Party. I say, let the Democratic Party is going to do what the Democratic Party is going to do. Progressives, let's do what we need to do. And now it is with great pleasure that I bring on El Senor John. Come on in, John. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How you doing, Egberto?
So far, so good. I haven't heard from you in a while.
I haven't had a show in a while.
Well, actually, on Saturdays we have tacit shows, right? I had to go see. We had Nina Turner in town last week,
right?
So I broadcast that on our channel, and we also had the week before. I don't remember what we had, but it's been a busy time with getting all these new activists in and so forth. But how have you been doing? And by the way, on KPFT, as you know, we're in fund drive, so all those lines go directly to the trying to make the station some money to keep it alive.
Yeah, definitely. Nina Turner came right from Houston to San Antonio.
Yes, she did.
Gave a great speech. Yeah, and so that was a great. There was about 100 people there.
Great.
It was great.
So did you go to it, or?
I'm sorry.
Were you there?
Oh yeah, I was there. And so I got to talk with Rick Trevino. He just got a endorsement from Justice Democrats for the 23rd District of Texas.
Yes.
So he's going to be running against 3 other Democrats, and hopefully he'll win, and he'll run against Will Hurd, which is a very flippable district.
Yes.
It's in the top 10 of the most flippable districts. So I also talked with, there's 3 other Bernie supporters running in the 21st district, which is Lamar Smith's district, which is
right.
San Antonio and Austin. So I talked to all of them, and so I mean it's looking pretty good.
I know Rick Trevino personally. I know Rick Trevino personally. We were actually Bernie Sanders delegate, and we met in Philadelphia. And in fact, he sent me some information that we are going to start promoting Trevino on our website, etc., etc., etc. He's a very young candidate. He's a very articulate candidate, and somebody that I think can actually win in your district.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I even gave him some money, so
good.
It's been great, and I hope he does well, I know he's been traveling, he puts it up on his Twitter account, how he's been traveling.
Right.
And so it's been, because it's such a huge district.
Oh, yes.
So as far as what your blog of the week is talking about, I mean, I got a little bit of a different take. I mean, you're talking about, complaining, progressives are complaining about the Democratic Party, and I think that the complaints are because a lot of people were purged out of the Rules Committee.
Yes.
And I kind of understand your take. Your take is, we have to do this on our own, but I mean, people have to make a choice. I mean, are we going to stay within the Democratic Party, or are we going to go independent?
Can I answer that before you go any further? Can I answer that real quick before you go any further? Let me tell you what I want to say to that, because that's a very important thing. And I was speaking to some people earlier this week, and what I look at them and I said is that the parties are nothing more than transports. We have a duopoly here, right? We don't have the structures that make it easy for independents to win a whole lot of seats here, just because of the nature of the party system. So what I would love for progressives to do is what I see people like Darnell Jones, and who was on my show on Wednesday, or rather on Thursday, and Adrian Bell, and these are both Justice Democrats that are running. These guys are out there in the field running in the primaries, and the idea is we can spend a whole lot of time talking about the Democratic Party is doing X, Y, Z, which they are. The establishment party is doing a whole lot of things to keep a particular sect in office. But when they see that we are working outside of the party, within the party, what I mean is running as Democrats, but outside of the party, emboldening the grassroots. So what if we have the structure doing all kind of shenanigans when we have the winners being people with our values? And that's what I want us to concentrate on. I want us to concentrate on, let's go out there, engage the people, because the party isn't. We look at the Democratic Party here in Harris County. They don't come out here in my part of town. They've just given up on this area. You know, they just concentrate on the same areas. They have no vision. And the people with vision are those young folks that I'm working with in Indivisible Houston, in Our Revolution, in all these groups. These are people with vision. And I'm telling them, forget about the party. Forget about it. Register with the party, and not only register with the party, give a few bucks to the party, but go out there and do the work. Because when we do the work, we are going to take it over. The other thing that I'm telling them is, start running for precinct chairs, folks. Because in Harris County alone, half of them are open. And then that is how we get power from within. We start with power from without, and then we get power from within. Continue, please, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's great what you've been doing as far as, interviewing the Justice Democrats. I know you did it in Atlanta, and
yes,
you're doing it on KPFT. And I think that's the real big fight that's coming up. Obviously, in Texas, it's going to be in less than 5 months. We're going to be having the Democratic primaries right off the bat, we're the first state. And so it should be coming, and it's going to be great, and hopefully, the candidates that you've been promoting will do well. I guess what I'm talking about is more or less in the presidential, the 2020, because as far as congressional seat and senatorial seats, I mean, what you're talking about, I think, is in play. I mean,
right.
It's just a matter of working hard and trying to get the message out there. But as far as the presidential, I mean, we have super delegates, you have, when primaries are going to be held, and that in that sense, the party really does have a lot of sway. And so I do think it is legitimate to complain about that. And it's also, I mean, do the hard work. I agree with that. Do the hard work. But, I mean, is it possible that Bernie or even Elizabeth Warren could actually get the most votes in 2020 and lose because of superdelegates? I mean, it is possible. And
yes.
So I think that, I think that we're trying to get, originally they wanted to have some kind of unity, and, in the race between Ellison and Perez, there was a lot of talk about unity, and now it just seems like they're doing all these purges and kicking people off seats, and again, it just pertains to 2020, but I mean, that's a major issue,
I can't disagree with you. And to tell you the truth, what you just said makes a ton of sense, right? In other words, I think what you're telling me here, and I'm going to go to some messages on the Facebook page in a little bit, guys. I'm going to go read some of them in a little bit. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and not only makes a lot of sense, John, it's very important. And what we have to look at is, you're saying that, do remember that the structures within the Democratic Party has some sway in who is going to be ultimately the candidate, but not only that, but that they are going to be responsible for things like when elections are held, and they could play some games, if you will, is I think what you're alluding to.
Right, like last, Clinton. Essentially, in my opinion, what she did was she put all the southern states first in 2016.
Right.
And obviously, Texas and a lot of southern states voted on March 1st, right? And not completely out of the gate, but I mean, pretty close. The first major Super Tuesday was March 1st, and she got this, almost insurmountable lead that was, Bernie was behind her from then on. And so right now, California has already moved up to that first Super Tuesday. And I don't think that that's much of a problem, because Bernie actually has a pretty large lead. She has an 11-point lead in the last Zogby poll over Biden, and I think 14 over Warren. So, I mean, I know this is a long time away, but I mean, I'm thinking about it already. I mean, 2018 is more important. I want to take the House back. But I mean, it is an issue that both of these states, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt on the internet about how, California moving to March 1st is going to be, go against Bernie. I think Bernie has enough support to actually win.
I think so too.
in California.
I absolutely think so. I absolutely think so. Folks, if you want to get into the conversation, please remember that this is also a call-in show, and of course I'll read some of your mail here on the Facebook page. But give us a call at 646-929-2495. Again, that is 646-929-2495. Let me get to a little bit of the comments that are on here if I can get to them. Let's see. Deborah says, Egberto, I suggest you bring Swing Left 07 to your show. They're working with a model that is progressive, focused, persistent, relentless. They're inspiring. From your mouth to my ears, Deborah Birnbaum. Get them to contact us, and if for some reason I can't get to the right person, and they will be on my show. If we do the job locally and statewide, 2020 is also going to go progressive. I agree with that, Deborah. Swing Left, Indivisible, they're doing great. I agree. Elise Elderkin says, without vision, the people perish. There's absolutely no doubt. Without vision, people perish. And the one thing we need now is vision. Let's see what else here is here. Progressives in the field, run. We will support you. I love that sentiment, Deborah. That is the other thing that we need to do, John, and everybody that's listening. People still have time to sign up to run for these offices. We need people to start running. It's not enough to just say I'm going to vote progressive or maybe I'll vote progressive. We have to have real progressives of substance running. And a lot of you that are listening here are progressives of substance that could run. In fact, I don't know why John himself doesn't run. John, why don't you run?
I just don't think I'd be able to do it. I just don't. I have some personal issues.
Okay.
And, physical issues.
I hear you. And welcome Timothy Graffus from Mexico, visiting your friends and your friends and family over there. No wall, and we don't intend to have any walls built. And Gibson, I think I said hi to you. Connie Sierras, I think I said hi to you. And Candy Horn, welcome aboard. Let's see. I hope this is not another Russian troll. Definitely not. If you know this show's been on for a while, and we're definitely not a Russian troll. And Michelle Lemon said, I used to think it was best to try to change from within. I know I was wrong. They don't want to change. They want the status quo. You're absolutely right. But you know what? Like we're talking here with John, there are several things that we have to do. John is right. John is actually more right than I was on the initial statement that I made. Because of the power of control in things like superdelegates, and also because these guys have certain controls on the election itself, we have to be cognizant of that. So we can't just ignore the machinations that's going on the inside. We have to talk about them, and we have to let these folks know that we are in fact watching them. So John, kudos to you on that one. My thing is always being as independent as possible, because I don't sit down and wait for folks to let things happen to me. We make things happen. Now, in your case, also, as you explained, also making things happen means that we also have to know and engage what these guys, meaning the Democratic Party, is doing that could have a material effect in getting our progressives elected. Now, talking about getting our progressives elected, there's something very important I want to talk to you guys about, and that is our candidates. I brought in two candidates, Adrian Bell and Jones, Darnell Jones, and they're running in 24 and I think 22 here in the Houston area. I brought them into the show, and they're all doing fine. They're out there engaged. They're doing a lot of social media to engage their people. They're also doing a whole lot of work. Yesterday I saw them on Facebook Live, engaging their people, which I think is very important. But there's yet something that is a bit more important, and that is funding. These guys that are running, it's okay for progressives to say, yes, we want progressives out there. There are several Democrats running in each of these races. Some of these Democrats are being funded by corporations. If you read if you watch the show, there's one blog post that I wrote, the blog of the day for that day, where I said, we are meant to operate within two rails. The left rail, which is the Democratic Party, and the right rail, which is the Republican Party. And tell me, when you go to the train stop and you see two rails, what is the one thing you know about those rails? They're both moving in the same direction. That is what we call the establishment. They force the issue within two rails, the left rail and the right rail. But basically, they're going in the same direction. I don't want to minimize the differences between the parties because they're great. But that delta can be expressed in the form of the distance between rails. The delta that we want to see is a delta of different paths altogether. A path that is not neoliberal. In other words, we want to move away from the point of view where we see America as some corporatocracy, some plutocracy, some oligarchy. Because both parties right now keep the plutocracy, the oligarchy, in power of the entire body politic. And that is what we want to get away from. So we don't want to work within those rails. Those rails are the ones that are funding Democrats and Republicans. Remember that. If you want a real progressive change, the funding has to be followed in the same manner that Bernie did his funding, where the grassroots bring those people to the fold. Bring them to the election. Bring them to win. Give them the resources they need to win. So when Adrian Bell, when Darnell Jones, when Rick Trevino, and all these guys that are running come to you and says, we need funding to get our message across, liberals, progressives, grassroots need to do what you can to help them. Because absent your help, they do succumb to the money. They don't need the kind of money that the plutocracy is paying for the guys that are fighting within the rails. They don't need that kind of money. But they do need your support. And on another note, and I'll bring that into my radio show and the KPFT event as well. And Chris Nunez, I think you just said, more empty rhetoric. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but if you want to explain to me what you mean by more empty rhetoric, let's go ahead and give us a call at 646-929-2495. I'll be happy to talk about what you consider empty rhetoric. We're very nice here. We engage in civil conversation here. And if somebody watching my show believe there's some empty rhetoric, I want to engage that person to see what would make my rhetoric less empty to them. So give me a call at 646-929-2495. I would love to speak to you, and I'm sure our audience at large would love to speak to you. Getting back to the message at hand, where we are speaking about funding elections and funding sources. We have a station called KPFT 90.1 FM. It's a progressive station. It's a complete community funded station. One of the hardest things that we have to do is raise funds to keep that station alive. All the hosts, myself, my show, and all the other hosts go to that show for free. We provide these shows because of our own civic duty. They don't pay us to do that. But still, a show that promotes progressive values, a show where progressives have a chance to get their message out in an economic manner. In other words, they come on the show for free. They don't have to be selected by one of the bigger stations to get their voices aired. And in coming to us, they don't only get to air their shows on air, 90.1 FM on a 100,000 watt transmitter, but they get to watch it here on Facebook Live. They get to watch it on the Blog Talk Radio Network. Progressives have avenues, but one of the things progressives never or rarely get is the appropriate funding for real grassroots progressives to go out there. So the next time you hear from Rick Trevino, the next time you hear from Darnell Jones, or the next time you hear from Adrian Bell, or any of these progressive candidates that put themselves on the line and say, I am going to make a difference. I am going to make a better county. I am going to make a better district. I'm going to make a better city. Support them. Support them. You support the corporatocracy when you go to Walmart. You support the corporatocracy when you buy a cup of coffee. You support the corporatocracy when you go buy a McDonald's. Donate a couple McDonald's to these people. Donate a couple of coffees. I'm talking the revenue that you would have used for the coffee. Help these people. Because absent your help, the plutocracy wins. And they win. And they win because they are in control of the capital. You can use the little capital that you have to leverage these people into power so that our dreams, our progressive values will actually get realized. Come on in, John.
Okay, I want to change the topic a little bit and talk about two things that I think are really important. One thing we've talked about for, since the election, and that's the Trump sabotage.
Yes,
and that really was put in effect, I guess, when was that? Last Friday, I guess.
Yes, where he actually stopped the CSRs, the cost sharing, yes.
And so now he's going back and forth whether he wants to have the Murray, who's the other guy? Alexander plan, which actually is going to help people.
Right.
But I mean, that seems to be floundering because he can't figure out whether he's going to sign it. And I mean, it seems like it has the votes to pass, is what I've heard.
Trump is in a dilemma. Trump is in a very big dilemma, and here's a problem that Trump has, right? People in Kentucky hear about Connect Care. They don't realize that Connect Care is Obamacare, and that most of those people who are very poor in Kentucky, which most of the people, or a large percentage of the people are poor, benefit from the CSRs. The CSRs predominantly benefit red states, more so than blue states, by quite a bit. So Trump has to fight himself. He has to fight rhetoric over reality. If he doesn't sign the CSRs, it looks like a win for Trump rhetorically, and all those Trump supporters are going to say, yeah, we won, we got rid of that Obamacare. But then they go to the doctor next year, and then they say, why do I have to pay $200 to see the doctor? Those CSRs used to pay. Well, because the CSRs got signed. Who did that? Obama. It's Obama's fault. Oh, no. It's Trump. It's Trump who removed the CSRs. And that's who he's fighting, John. He's fighting himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I've said this before. It's like a political malpractice. Of course, the most important thing is that you help people have health care.
Yes.
So let's put that up front. That is the most important thing. Give people access to health care, which the ACA did as far as 22 million people had access. And now I'm seeing that I think it was a 1.5 million people have actually lost health care since Trump has come in.
It's a sad situation. The incline was up. The incline was a steady up. Yeah. And as soon as Trump got into office, he did several things, John. He removed all the most of the advertising. He also went ahead and cut the budget for Navigator. So the advertising wasn't only removed for the 2018 enrollment period. If you remember when he came into power, enrollment period, as I recall, was still open, but all advertising was cut. And that had a material effect on people knowing that they qualified to get the Affordable Care Act. They qualified for subsidies. It's a sad situation.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And like I said, that the main thing is just helping people. But I mean, the secondary thing is political. And so that's why all the Republicans like Alexander and, right now, you got 48 votes from Democrats.
Yes.
And, you have 12 votes already from the Republicans, So, I mean, it's just a matter of, will McConnell put this, bring this up for a vote, and then will Trump sign it?
That's
So,
the
I mean,
issue.
I guess we'll be looking at this pretty carefully. But I mean, as much as I want the Republicans out, I mean, at the same time, I want these people to get help and to maintain this, for at least 2 years, even if it's just a temporary thing. Let's not pull the rug out from under them like Trump is saying he's going to do. So
Yeah, let me tell you, ultimately, I don't think he does it. I think that was a bargaining chip to make it look. With Trump, that's all as important. He works in cycles, right? He works in news cycles. So he has a news cycle looking tough on Obamacare. And immediately he caves. And the thing about it, he advertises when he's tough and he ignores the news cycle when he's not. And what he needs to do, and that's how the mainstream media helps him. When he does something crazy, they blow it up. And when he goes back and he kicks back on what he was going to do, they say, yes, he looks like he turned away, but that's Trump. And then they move on to the other subject. I mean, it hasn't only been political malpractice. It has also been media malpractice, and a whole lot of malpractice is going on here. In fact, I don't know if you saw I don't know if you saw that Tom Hartman quoted one of my Daily Kos articles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tom Hartman.
Which one?
The one that I said we should convict politicians for political malpractice. We should have something to that effect. And Tom Hartman started his show and he said the most important thing I read was from an activist called Egberto Willies, and it's an article he placed on. Look it up on my site. An article he placed on Daily Kos. When I said,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, he went ahead and read that a lot of pieces out of that for the show, and then he went on with the show and kind of expanded on it quite a bit, like only Tom Hartman can. You know how good he is, so he did that.
Definitely.
But anyhow, what do you have any other issues that you want to add to the fold before I go into another one of my monologues?
Yeah, let's talk about the tax breaks for the rich. I'm not going to call it tax reform. I'm going to call it tax breaks for the top 1%.
Yes.
Because that's who they benefit the most.
Yes.
And they had the budget vote in the Senate
yesterday.
So that the only person to vote against it was a Republican, was Rand Paul.
Can you believe that?
And so so now they're going to go into this reconciliation, and of course they still don't have the wording on the bill, but they have an outline, and the outline is absolutely horrible. And it's going to, if this passes, it's going to be worse than even the Reagan tax cuts.
Yes.
And so I mean, this is really a huge event, and I see, it's a great debate between Bernie and Ted Cruz. I mean, Bernie blew him away
completely.
But I mean, I don't see, and I understand why, because healthcare, that has such an impact on everybody directly. I mean, it's life or death. But I mean, as you know very well, the problem, with if you have this income inequality that's going to be exacerbated even more with these tax cuts. It's going to make this problem even worse, and it's going to make people's lives, especially working class and middle class people, much worse. I just don't think it's getting enough publicity, and I don't think that the Democrats are really pushing back in the same way as healthcare. And I know that that's hard to do. But, the vote's going to be coming. I mean, I don't know exactly when, but, I mean, they've already, laid the groundwork for it. It's just a matter of getting the bill, and it could come pretty quickly. So,
and I think
I'm just...
the tax bill is going through. In my humble opinion, the tax bill is going through. We have to remember that it's... let me back up. The budget is going through. Because the budget is not etched in gold, even after they pass the budget, it really means nothing, right? You still have to have appropriations and all that sort of stuff. So it's just going to be sort of an outline. But their outline is one that's going to kill a whole lot of Medicare and Medicaid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that said, I think what they're going to do is pass the budget. And the only reason they need to pass the budget, right, is so that they can solve their problem with taxes via reconciliation and not need 60 votes. Kind of understand that. The only reason they're passing the budget, and it will get passed, is so that when they're voting on tax issues, it doesn't require 60 votes. And that's what they're doing here. So anything they can just pass any budget, and then within when they start doing the passing the laws one at a time for tax cuts or whatever, they can go through all of that because it's going to be within the confines of this budget that will get it through. And they're going to do a lot of, I think more than anything else, they're going to do a lot of cost cutting. And then after that, after they pass this tax cut, then they will come back and re-add the things that would have destroyed Medicaid and Medicare and just blow the budget apart, because they're not going to let the Medicare cut stand. And we all know that, right? And that's why it's a hard battle to fight, because we know what's coming. We have to try to make a tax reform issue more a bread and butter issue, something that's going to kill Americans, something that is going to kill your budget. And we haven't yet found a way to do that. I don't know why, but we have enough paid people out there that should figure that out. But there are so many darn elitists in the party who haven't a clue what an average middle class person's life is about, that they can't see how do we market this. So the same way Republicans have always known how to market their own issues. And that is something we have to learn how to do. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and we have to put pressure. I mean, because if you look at the real core of why Trump care didn't pass, is the repeal and replace didn't pass, is because we put pressure on Collins, Murkowski,
yes,
McCain. I mean, there are some other, and then Rand Paul, from the right was against it. I mean, I don't know if that. Basically, they just have to hold their caucus together. Like you said, it's going to go through reconciliation. It's going to only need 50 votes. And all they really have to do is hold their caucus. So we have to put pressure on Collins, Murkowski, McCain,
absolutely,
people like that, to have it not pass. And
absolutely.
It seems a little bit harder because that's more of their core values.
Absolutely so.
Which is really sad, but I mean that's the way it is. Even the moderates are really, and the Republicans are really wrong about their tax philosophy, and we really need to not have this pass because it'll be a disaster.
Well, you know what? We have a lot of work to do, and we are going to get that work done. Right now, John, we're coming up to the end of the show. So what I want you to do for me is give me a quick a closer, actually a minute or so closer, and then I'm going to give my little monologue I want to end this program with today, and then we'll have a great ready for our show on Thursday. Come on in, John.
All right, great show as usual. Really enjoyed it. Covered a lot of topics. I think that I'm just really happy that you're covering the our revolution, slash Justice Democrats slash brand new Congress people. I think that's really important that we give publicity to these people and that we vote for them in the primaries. As far as, one thing about, there's so many other issues that Trump distracts us from the main one, I'm not saying there's so many issues, but there's been a lot of distraction this week, and I'm not saying that should be covered. Kelly did terrible things to Frederica Wilson, lied about her. Trump did terrible things, won't address what's happening in this year. It's hard to really kind of put a finger on, we need to focus on not having, sabotage. We need to focus on trying to get this tax bill not to pass. Because of all the distractions, but the distractions are disturbing in itself because, they involve Trump and Trump's so disturbed. So, try to keep, there's a lot of things on people's plates, but just remember, the health care and the tax cuts for the rich are really important. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on the most.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you for the input that you always put in. Folks, thank you so kindly for spending this time with us today. Please do remember to share all these videos. Please do remember to share this because, again, we know that the media is not out here to cover all the very progressive values of the issues that we stand for. So we need you to be the media. We need you to be the one that's going out there and doing what we have to get done. Let's remember that there's a whole lot happening. Try to encourage people to run for offices, whether it's the dog catcher, whether it's a water board, the school board, every type of board. We need people, progressives out there running, not only on the national level that gets all the attention, but on every single level of government. We want you out there, but most importantly, on all those that are not running, all those that are sitting back. It is important that you support these progressive candidates. Give them the $5 a month. Give them whatever you can every month so that they can run a campaign that is sustainable and that can allow them to win. Because if we want to win, we have to invest in those who are putting out the values that we as found for. Now, as far as our resources, we have resources like KPFT and blog sites all over. These sites need to be funded as well. Because I've sent those sites, I've sent the KPFT radios of the world. There is no other mouthpiece for a lot of these progressives to get their messages out because the mainstream media is not going to take them seriously, because the mainstream media many times are beholden to the corporatocracy, the oligarchy, the plutocracy. So it is on you. So please remember, share these videos, do your part, support the KPFTs of the world, the coffee parties of the world, support these candidates, and let's move forward. I thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. I would love for you to make sure to share these videos over and over again so that people can get a flavor of what's out there. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. You have a wonderful rest of your Saturday.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.